Good evening. You're watching Point Blank here at KTN News. The scriptures that I love to read, the Lord Jesus Christ said, I am the light and I'm the way. Unfortunately, he may have not come to Kenya. But anyway, we have Engineer Njoroge here to perhaps convert me. My brother, if you look not at the rear view mirror, but if you look in a periscope and look forward, and also side mirror and look on the side, where are we on the lane towards actualizing reasonable living in a well-lit, safe country?
You know, history, Tony, is only useful to create lessons for the future. And I want to tell you that because of the history we have had of switching on customers at certain times, and that happened at one time when I was in charge of the whole of Nairobi and the surroundings, and it was very painful in 2001, very painful period. And I think we learned our lessons, and that's why I told you as a government initiative, the power sector was changed, and we were able to incorporate private sector investors. I see a lot of participation by private sector to complement the exchequer, because, Tony, we must be sincere with ourselves. Security, water, food and nutrition, health, those education, those are social services that must be not commercialized. Those are services that the government must meet its cost. Energy is in between. There are some citizens who cannot afford energy, and that is why even in our tariff regime, we have what we call a lifeline tariff. Of the 7.2 million customers that I told you we have, you won't believe it, but more than 6.5 million of those customers are actually lifeline customers enjoying a special low tariff, about maybe 2/3 or slightly less than your tariff, because they consume very little. They are in the rural areas. They don't have affordability. In any tariff setting regime anywhere in the world, affordability is key. Then I will also tell you that energy or electricity sector is regulated. It's not free for all. Even those private investors who come, they must give us, they must do what we call open book. These are my investments, these are my expectations, these are my return of investment, this is the debt servicing and all that. So I want to assure you that we are on the right track. And I will tell you, in access of electricity within this region, many countries have come to benchmark with us because of that very fast speed of growth of electrification, what we call access, which for all intents and purposes, I would put it at almost 70%. And we are looking to ensuring that by 2022, the end of 2022, almost all Kenyans will have access to power, either by grid or by an off-grid solution. That is one of the government's policy and program that we have in place, and we will work very hard to ensure that we achieve that objective.
Yes.
The other one, geothermal.
Yes.
KenGen is a leader in geothermal in this region. Indeed, they have been contracted by Djibouti, they have been contracted by Ethiopia to champion and start development of geothermal in their countries. So we've got good stories to tell. We are a leader in terms of growth of access of electricity. We are a leader in terms of geothermal. Those are good stories to celebrate. You know, sometimes you don't just look at this glass as half empty. Look at it as half full. look at it from a positive dimension. That's one. Two,
yes.
Oftentimes, I have met Kenyans, and they have told me very good stories about their experience. They thought that they will not see light, what you have called light, up to the time they will die. But surprisingly, last month, I just found a truck outside my house, and guess what? Kenya Power was there trying to install power. I think there are good stories that Kenyans talk about. I want to assure Kenyans to stay on that path of hope, because we've got very elaborate plans to make sure that we have energy in form of electricity, which is reliable, which is sustainable, which is affordable, which is competitively priced compared to the other countries in the region, so that we can be able to create an enabling environment for Kenyans. Because electricity, energy is an enabler. It's the one that drives
As you
economy.
continue with that thought, how are Kenyans helping you with this disease of thuggery? I would imagine the high cost of power is also interrelated and interdependent on your lines running, and running without being stolen or being diverted. To what extent and to what percentages are Kenyans themselves adding to their own burden?
I think, I do remember that in the year 2013, our losses were about 16%. But I do know that those losses have increased to about 22%, which is a very high growth of losses. And mainly is because of sometimes theft of electricity in form of bypassing the meters. Sometimes even the collusion between the employees and the customers. And that's one of the very many plans and programs that Kenya Power has in place to make sure that they mitigate that. And they are using some of the customers themselves, because the best policeman is your brother. If you are your brother's keeper, you make sure that your brother does not steal electricity to make electricity expensive for him and for you as well. This is a narrative which has been going on in the media. I think there has been a lot of advertisements and awareness by Kenya Power to advise customers to report those who obviously are increasing their cost of electricity by stealing. And I would say that we are privy to those plans, and we acknowledge that those plans will indeed reduce those losses, which is also another way of actually reducing the cost of power.
Engineer, I want to bring you to maybe the crux of the matter. In terms of laws and in terms of regulations, in terms of all those things, what is it going to take in this country for not the big people to be seen, to be the ones profiting from power? You know, Safaricom and other companies that have tried to come with systems that introduce participation of people commercially and otherwise have made them feel like they own the product. Power generation is an elitist thing done by 2-3 companies at the top. The whole feel is that you are just buyers. Is there models in the world? Is there things that the government is looking at where Mimi, with my half acre or 1 acre of solar energy or wind or what, that I can become a participant in the grid so that Kenya Power is paying me, I'm not paying them? Is there any reverse look by, it looks like Kenya Power ni ya kupokea?
No, I will say this, Tony, and I'll be very honest about the challenge. One is that energy generation is fairly capital intensive. And what it requires is that the communities can participate. There is no doubt about that. Because some of the indigenous sources of energy prevail in areas where communities are. And with the current state of devolution, We've got a devolved system of government. There's no reason why a county cannot partake a piece of the cake of generation of power. Absolutely. All they need to do is to put in the investment, and they are very enabling regimes, because when you are developing a power plant, you only need to bring a feasibility study, and then you tell us who are going to participate in the resources mobilization of that power plant. We have encouraged, I personally have encouraged very many counties to champion the generation of energy from waste. I have even signed a document for private investors to come up together with the counties and generate, use that waste which they got and generate electricity. Now, but unfortunately, yes, it has not worked. We went all the way up to the edge with the Nairobi County government, and then there was, if you have to invest in such a capital-intensive project, you must be ready to put in what the resources that are required and which are very well calculated. And for example, the county governments which would be serious about such a project, it's fundamentally, the decision of what stake you have is fundamentally driven, considering the waste belongs to the county, considering even the space where that power plant will belong to the county. All you need to do is to work out a very good partnership with the private investors, and then you'll be able to come up.
So, Engineer, His Excellency the President has been at the forefront of saying that he wants government to be more accountable, transparent, and so forth. And of late, there's been a lot of rumors about Kenya Power, power struggles, corruption. In keeping with the President's directives, you as the permanent secretary and ministry, what are you doing to ensure that Kenya Power can be sorted out? And has there been clarity now in what was in the public? I don't know. I can't quite tell because there were so many versions of it. But is there? I mean, is the president is very clear. What seems to be the issue in getting leadership, appointing a CEO, getting it going, and where is that matter?
No, I think we already have a CEO in Kenya Power, and all the energy sector institutions have a CEO at the moment. We believe that those CEOs who have been appointed are the best, and I think they should be able to drive the initiatives of the government. But I must say, a thief is a thief. And you know very well, Tony, when a thief is a clever person. And what we are doing is we are working with the security agents in partnership with them to help address those who want to privilege the public resources. And we will be very supportive to security agents to identify such corrupt people and get rid of them so that we can be able to solve that problem. I will tell you, that problem we talked about of losses, the best way of addressing it is changing the heart of Kenyans. Just to agree, if it doesn't belong to me, let me leave it and let me consume what belongs to me. Why would you want to use electricity without paying for it? Why would you want your neighbor to pay more because you are stealing electricity? And when you look at it
So you're assuring Kenyans as a ministry, you are cooperating with security agencies to ensure that nothing is left unturned. This is
very much so.
Yes.
I must give hope and I must give assurance to the Kenyans that we are very, very focused on doing a good job for them. I talked about affordable and competitively priced power. You can't get that when a bit of it is lost through that pilferage of corruption. So we will.
I wanted you to expand a bit when you said that you've had some experience in we import power. Have we been able to export any power, or it's because I see that as interesting, the work that you're planning, that as a strategy. Because when we were in blackout, we were saying, can we import from, is it Egypt? No, not Ethiopia, where there was the feeling, is that connectivity there?
There's connectivity
Yes.
between Ethiopia and Kenya. When I told you the line will be through next year in April.
Yes, yes.
And at that time we can be able, and by the way,
Yes.
during the time of the drought,
Yes.
we could have exported to Ethiopia, not the other way around.
Yes.
They were also rationing electricity. And that's what I said is the best way of coming up with a stable, reliable, and secure power system
Yes.
is by interconnections.
Yes.
Because you will find in this country, we have plenty of geothermal. In Ethiopia, they have plenty of hydro. So when there are a lot of lanes, we can export from them. When there are no lanes, we can export to them. Uganda also has a mix of hydro. Again, we can export when they don't have enough, and we can import when we don't have enough of our hydro. Because sometimes it may rain in Uganda, it doesn't rain here.
Yes.
So that complementarity
Yes.
of the countries within the region
Yes.
is one way of mitigating challenges of the power
One
system.
thing I don't want to forget to ask, given the change of climate and the unpredictability of drought and rain, government policy is to ensure that geothermal and the other solar, that we are able never to have blackout. You know, this water, the world, the climate change is everywhere.
That is very true. And our focus, as I said, actually, let me say this, we have more or less exploited the entire potential of hydro. You know, it is very difficult today to build dams because of what we call environmental concerns, resettlement of those people.
I don't want to comment about dams.
And I don't want to go that. We don't want to go
are
that
not
route.
built.
We want to concentrate. Concentrate on geothermal, which is its availability factor is about 92 to 95%. Availability of hydro is about 50%. So we want to concentrate more on
and hydro, you've reached the peak, and geothermal, you've only used a bit of it, 9,000.
Correct. We've reached the peak. We've got a lot of potential of geothermal. We've got private investors willing and ready to work on geothermal. And as I said, it is also, we have to balance between supply and demand.
And when you talk about the grid, is it becoming more efficient? To retain, is there going to be a way in which, as you know, as you look forward in your strategic plan, the transmission of this, I'm looking at mitigation of costs at the end of it. Are you seeing somewhere down the road where these investments you're making, other than just the capacity, even the transmission, the way in which you distribute, will it eventually come to our pocketbook and reduce in the medium and long term?
I'll give you a very simple example. We've got geothermal in Naivasha. We've got thermal plants in Mombasa. We've done a 400 kilovolt line between Naivasha and Mombasa, Mariakani. The 400, at the moment, the line is operated at 220 kilovolt. It will soon be operated at 400 kilovolt, maybe by mid next year. When we get that line switched on at 400 kilovolt, we'll be able to export more geothermal power to Mombasa, and therefore reduce almost to zero the uptake of thermal energy in Mombasa. So as you're asking, as we put these lines, and I will tell you, that is going to be our first line at 400 kilovolt, which has been put up by this government. I told you about a 500 kilovolt line, which is already under construction between Kenya and Ethiopia. Is going to be the first one in this sub-Saharan Africa. That's the first line. And then we also have the line from Loyogarani to Naivasha. It's currently operated at 220 kilovolts. It's okay. But if we get more generation of wind power, which is abundant, there's so much wind in Marsabit, in Turkana, in Saburu, all those areas, there's a lot of weed. And therefore, once we again put up that line to 400 kilovolt line, we'll be able to export more of that weed power to this.
The Wangu engineers, we come to summarize and end the program as the ministry and as permanent secretary. What would you like to say? Because you're called principal secretary these days. I would like you just to have your last word, because I would like to then thank you for coming.
Thank you, Tony. Let me assure Kenyans that our overarching vision in this country is Vision 2030, to transform Kenya to a middle-income industrializing nation. We cannot industrialize without energy in the form that I said: cost-effective, competitively priced, reliable, sustainable, and secure. We want to assure Kenyans that we are working towards that definition of energy. Then we've got the big four, which is the third medium-term framework. You know, from the Vision 2030, we got frameworks. This is the third one. And we are focusing on universal health care. We are focusing on manufacturing, on housing, and also on food and nutrition security. I want to assure Kenyans that in the manufacturing, for example, we've already created a very special product of an industrial park in Naivasha and several others which will be all around the country with competitively priced power to make sure that we build the manufacturing. The other, universal health care, we have got resources to address power supply to all the level 4 and level 5 hospitals. We are now working on level 3, and we will make sure that we will not let down the country by denying them that very important product of power to drive the equipment of universal health care. In the food and nutrition, we know that one of our main problems is sometimes we have excess food, but we can't conserve. We have to feed that sometimes food to animals, simply because we can't conserve, we can't preserve. We know energy, especially in form of electricity, is very important to conserve and preserve. My assurance is we are focusing on all those facilities for conserving and preserving. And we have advised the counties, anytime they come up with those preservation and conservation industries, factories, we are ready to power them. In the area of housing, we have already identified the areas where the houses will be required. We have resources for the houses that will be put up in this current financial year, and we have put on budget requests for all the energy and electricity supply that will be required in the succeeding years. So in terms of the big four, we are set and ready. We have enough resources to do the implementation of those projects, and we are working with the National Treasury to make sure that the resources required for all those initiatives are available. And I have no doubt, Tony, that in terms of reliable, cost-effective, and competitively priced power, we will be able to deliver to the Kenyans. We have that resolve. The government is very supportive in making sure that we drive the initiatives that lead to those challenges.
Well, you're watching Point Blank here at KTN News with the Principal Secretary, the Ministry of Energy. He's been here to talk kwa wananchi kinaga ubaga, wazungu wanasema point blank. Asante sana.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you.
Thank you very much, engineer, for coming. Na asante tena. You're watching KTN News.
Point Blank by TG was filmed on location at the Nairobi Serena Hotel.